Now in the last lecture, we moved the transition component inside the modal, and then we're just using the same logic essentially. Now still there is one thing you might have noticed. We set a timeout of 300 milliseconds, but the animation we play, we set up in modal CSS, actually takes 400 milliseconds. Now that isn't an issue, it simply will not play the entire animation. That's the thing, which then of course might be an issue again. The timeout you set on the transition component determines how long the entering and exiting state, for which we're checking, will be held, for how long this is basically the state it uses. If you define a timeout which is much shorter than the animation you play, you simply quit the animation preemptively, because you switch the state too early. You switch to exit it, which will mean that the element is removed, and that of course might not be the behavior you're looking for. Still, it's not necessarily an issue if you set it up like this. However, one other thing you might want to keep in mind, or you might want to configure in some cases, is the timeout. The timeout right now is only our value in milliseconds defined as a number. What if you wanted different timings for entering and leaving though? You can set this up. So let me set this up by defining a new constant, and I do this outside of the component because this is not going to change. It's a constant not related to the component rendering here. This constant I'll name animation timing, and that will be a JavaScript object. And in that JavaScript object, you can define an enter key and give it a duration of, let's say, 400 milliseconds, and an exit key of, let's say, 1 second. 400 milliseconds in 1 second, so that we can really see a difference. So enter and exit. And that's important. These are the two types you can define. And as you might be able to guess, enter simply defines the duration it will use for adding this element. Exit defines the duration it will use for removing it. So now if we pass animation timing here, this object we just defined to timeout, it will use these values for the two different types of transition. With that, let's also adjust the animation in our CSS file, and let's say close modal there also should take 1 second. If we now save this and we go back and we click open modal, the animation in is the same as before, but if I dismiss this, it's much slower, over 1 second. And there you can see the different durations being used. So that's something to keep in mind about the timing. It can quit an animation too early, and you can also define different timings for entering and exiting.